You've been called upon to predict the future of local South African football for the next 4 months of the year, and no one else can perform the task besides you. It's the job that weighs heavily on your shoulders, and you're expected to perform regardless of the circumstances. It's your time to shine. It's your opportunity to show your own greatness. What do you do? Do you sit for the call, or do you stand for it? Well then, my friends, I stand for it. Welcome to Chat of Athletes. I am Gogito, aka HunchoJack, and I am your host as usual. Welcome to the new episode for the year, and I hope that you're enjoying yourself wherever you are. You came well into the year, and you're enjoying yourself so far. Welcome to episode 7, Chat of Athletes, halfway season assessment. Let's get into it and see what it has in store. Chat of Athletes. As I've already introduced myself, I'm Gogito, HunchoJack. I'm happy to be here once again. I'm glad to be shooting this episode, of which has been long coming. And I'd just like to start off with a nation, and not even a nation. I'd like to start this episode off with an address. An address of accountability, an address of basically a public statement. And inside Chat of Athletes and ACG as a channel, as a whole, as a network, as a company, it intends on maintaining integrity and a high standard of not only content, but also the production of it and the speed at which it's distributed to the consumers out there. We're starting off the year once again. This episode is probably going to air on Wednesday. So we hope that by Sunday we communicate an official timeline date of when episodes of different shows will be coming. And overall, we hope there's a bit more transparency from our end and a lot more consistency in terms of the production, execution, and overall quality of the product. This episode is a halfway season assessment, and we look into the second half of the season. There's 2 parts to this. So we're starting off part 1 with the first 8 teams in the PSL. And it's only right to start it off with the best of the bunch, and that is Mamelodi Sundowns, all the way from Pretoria, the province of Gauteng. It is a very interesting team. I think we all know about Mamelodi Sundowns. If you don't, then you really are not aware of South African football as a whole. They are the epitome of success domestically. You could even say so on a continental scale. They have a high-level coach and a high-level team overall in terms of squad and in terms of the board and management. And you could also say ownership. And that is what has been quintessential towards their success. That is, the cogs of the machine all work simultaneously to achieve the same goal. And with that at hand, these are the numbers so far of this season. They're first on the log, played 13 games, won 11, drew 2, only conceded 3 goals and scored 20 in the process, which means they have a goal difference of plus 20, far greater than any other team in the league. The team even close second in the league doesn't even compare in terms of their goal difference and in terms of the amount of clean sheets they've been able to keep. And the only reason why they have the last 2 draws is because they drew their last 2 games of the first half of the season. Still unbeaten. The last 2 games they faced Cape Town City away, of which one would say that to an extent they could have or should have lost that game. Then another game at home against Polokwane City, of which they failed to break them down for several reasons. But overall, they have played phenomenally well, have had continental success in the African Cup League, African Nations League, the AFC. Man, I forgot the name of that trophy. But they've had continental success so far this season, and they have done not only themselves proud, but they've done South Africa proud. They continue to set a standard that not many, if none, can actually meet. They continue to show their greatness for a variety of reasons. And if you look at it as a whole, in totality, they really have done phenomenal stuff. Right? They've only conceded 3 goals this entire season. Their biggest one so far came 4-0 against Golden Arrows. And if you also look at the level of rotation that they get in their squad on a consistent basis, allows them to remain fluid, playing in multiple competitions, trying to qualify for the knockout phases of the CAF Champions League. You're also trying to win other domestic trophies. Unfortunately, they lost 2 cup finals this year, but one cup final and one they got knocked out by TS Galaxy in the Carling Cup in the first round. But they show a level of expandability. They can stretch themselves and still compete at the highest level and take teams to the wire, And that's a very key thing to be successful in any league and in any sort of sport, in this team sport in a sense. But in terms of them overall, they have been pretty stellar this year so far. I think they're on course to win their 7th straight league title in a row, because the last one that was won by Bidvest, and that was in 2017-18, and they haven't lost the league ever since. So that just speaks to their brilliance, that just speaks to their quality, that just speaks to their overall build as a team. We also look at currently heading to the second half of the season, they only have 2 players out on injury, Orbis Batusi and Sianda Nyonga, shoulder and groin respectively, or groin and shoulder respectively, right? And then you also have on the other side potential signings coming in. Following Coach Rulani Mokoena having said that there isn't a desire to sign any player at the moment, they find themselves close to completing a deal with 46 million rands for Matthias Esquivel. Matthias Esquivel, an attacking midfielder. And the sources from Intiski Times, via goal.com or goal SA rather, but it's goal, via goal.com. So, I found out this information last night, and I'm I wouldn't necessarily say I'm shocked, but it's understandable. The last 2 games of the season, if you look at them, they had a bit of a difficulty breaking down teams. You look at the game against Polokwane City, Polokwane had high defensive organization, and they came there with an intention to keep a low block and make it very difficult for them to be broken down. Sometimes a complete dominance over the entire game, but they just lacked the offensive firepower to break down teams, and that's how I think Coach Rulani sees the second half of the season playing itself out as well, in terms of it's going to be very difficult for teams to really try to attack us, but at the same time, in the same breath, it'll be very difficult for us to break down teams because a lot of them will play at a low block, especially teams in the lower half of the table, of which are trying to survive. So now what do? We ought to find a solution to the problem, even though the problem is ahead. It is still far. It is still approaching, and we will get to the bridge. And we rather be prepared when we have to cross it, rather than hope for the best. And the signing of an attacking midfielder, it sort of fills up the position a little bit in terms of they already have personnel. The current top scorer, Ribeiro, he plays as a 10, right? He's listed as an attacking midfielder in the team. Of course, it seems as though he can play in the front line as well, but there is an element of adding a very dimension to it. A very dimension in terms of they want to put into the lineup a piece of which isn't understandable so far. That isn't very easy to figure out because they don't know what the player comes with. And if football history is anything to use as a source of reference, of which it is, we ought to know that Brazilian players are most often a source of creativity in terms of how they play. Their style of football is very spontaneous, it's very magical, it's very beautiful as well. But for most parts, they often have the creative ability to make something out of nothing. And this signing makes sense, it's understandable. So it is a signing of which I'm very much, optimistic about it being successful. You also look at the team they're being signed to, and the culture of the team. Sundowns has a very winning culture and winning mentality, and a lot of the players that go there, especially foreign players, have a tendency to thrive because the environment that you're brought into, not only is it welcoming, but it's also competitive, and competitive to the highest level, So I'm very much looking forward to how everything plays itself out, And they also had signed another player, a defender from Chippa, by the name of, God damn it, I lost that piece of paper. Oh, they signed Dunyela from Chippa United. And it was a bit of an unexpected signing, but Coach Rani spoke on it, saying that the signing was in an understanding that we need more competition in the wing back areas, right? And that competition is necessary for the team to thrive overall. They didn't want to find themselves in a position of which there's only one player on. If the right or the left side has only one defender, it doesn't bolster well for the team. It doesn't do us any benefit, and we need to have as much options and as much variety in this all as possible. So that signing also makes sense. However, I found out that Rulani also made several comments about himself, speaking on how he's slowly but surely falling out of love with the game, and he's not sure if he'll coach for much longer from this point on. And there was a bit of shock when that came, because obviously, like anyone expects, when you're at the height of something, you don't assume the person at the top is ever feeling bad or is ever going through a difficult patch. And whenever they wish or they decide that they wish to leave that place, it's often a shock reaction from the fans. And so, as a fan of him, as a fan of his style of play, as a fan of his team, it's a bit shocking that he's contemplating leaving the sport. Or maybe he could be pulling a Pep Guardiola tactic, of which he says one thing but acts in another, But I don't think falling out of love with the game is enough for him to leave it. I think his connection to the sport will never allow him to leave it. And that's one thing that is torturous about any person who gives their life to something, who's so obsessed with a particular thing that the fact that I don't love it at that particular moment doesn't let me leave it. I still stick through it because, one, it may have gotten me at some point in their life through difficult things. Two, it's brought me a lot of success as well. So I'm not going to, I wouldn't read too much into that, but I think it shows an element of, we're all human and we get tired sometimes. No matter how high we sit on that ladder, we do sometimes feel a bit down, and we'd like to, get a chance to live life and be normal for a second. But overall, Mamelodi Sundowns, if I was to take a guess of how they'd finish the season, they're going to win the league. Now the big question becomes, how do they win the league? Do they win the league undefeated, or do they take some losses along the way? And I like to say they win the league undefeated. You look at how they won against Supersport away. Supersport had to go to their side, and that's one side of which you'd possibly look at and think they could lose to. You also look at how they played Pirates away, and they came back with the result. They gutted out the result and left it a 1-0 win. You look at the other games against the other top 4, top 5 teams, they've beaten all of them. It wasn't draws, it was wins. So there's a certain level of quality that they possess which is above everybody else's. And I think finishing the season undefeated isn't impossible. Even if they have to go to certain places and draw on the road, I see them doing that because of the just an overall firepower that they have. And looking at the defensive records that the other teams have around them, they're bound to concede goals. And Sundowns are bound to score goals because they score goals so well and in so many different ways. So I'll have to go with Sundowns winning the league, of course. Do they finish the season undefeated? I think they do. I'm really hopeful that they do. I don't see why not, Every sign indicates towards them finishing undefeated. There's very little reason that they finish the season with like 1 or 2 losses. You look at maybe because of CAF that could change. Maybe they could lose a few key players to injuries, seeing that how many of their first 11 players went to the national team. So, but we'll see how everything plays itself out and how it pans out. We really don't know. Now we move on to the second team, which is currently second on the log, and that is Cape Town City. The team of which we can say should have beaten Mamelodi Sundowns, but they fumbled the chance to. I think this game is of importance to mention, or that point is important to mention, because that could have closed the gap between them and Mamelodi Sundowns if they'd taken their chances in that game. But they failed to, right? Because if they had, they'd only be 3 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns right now. Well, it'd only be 4 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns. So, no, actually, they'd be 3 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns. Or 2. They'd be 2 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns because there was a 5-point gap. So now you see that there is. Wait, if Sundowns loses 1 point, they go to 34. Go to 34, they go to 28. It's 28. Yeah, there would be 3 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns. It would have been 3 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns, and they could have taken their chances. They should have taken their chances, but they didn't in that game. But they closed off their season with the win in the Cape Town derby against Cape Town Spurs, formerly known as Ajax Cape Town. And they did what they needed to do, to be honest. They really put the stuff on display and they won the game. They did all that was necessary to get themselves over the line. I wouldn't say they dominated the game. I found myself displeased by the articles that I read, of which said that the team that Cape Town City dominated Cape Town Spurs, and they didn't further elaborate what you mean by dominate, because possession stats said one thing, but if you look at the kind of chances that were available to both sides, they were quite similar. They both had chances to score. Cape Town City had multiple chances to equal the game, but they failed to, right? And when you fail to, what happens? You lose the game. You lose the game. At the top league against top opposition, you get punished in moments of which you do not take the opportunities, and that's what happened. Well, that's what happened. And so there was, unfortunately, an L taken by them again, since they sit bottom of the log. But Cape Town City kept on rolling. They did what they needed to do. They played, so far in the season, they've played 16, won 9, drawn 2, lost 5, scored 18 and conceded 11 in the process. Have a goal difference of +7, sitting second on the log. And their biggest loss so far is a 3-2 loss to Amazulu away. Their biggest one so far is 3-1 against Cape Town Spurs and against Richards Bay. So you see that they're having a pretty good season. Eric Tinkler doesn't feel like switching anything in the team. There's no players of which are which they're on the lookout for in terms of transfer talks. And they're playing really good football. There's no reason to doubt them. There's no reason to have any sort of concern about them. Do I think they'll finish second on the log? I'm not too sure about that. I think they might finish third, because I think if what happened against the next team I'm going to be talking about, they'd be sitting third on the log, and I think that's where they deserve to be. I think that's where they've played really well to be in the position they currently in, that's where they sit second. But I think down the stretch they'll fail to get a few results, which will help them qualify for the CAF Champions League. So I don't see them closing the gap on Sundowns, I'm not gonna lie. Because I think unlike Mamelodi Sundowns, what a lot of other teams in the PSL lack is the ability to just push themselves over the line sometimes. And I saw that in the game against Sundowns, because all they needed was just one chance just to push them over the line. And they had clear enough chances to take the lead, but they just failed to capitalize on them. Also considering that happened in a home game. So I'm not too sure about Cape Town City. I'm really undecided on them. So understanding them, I'm still in the process of understanding the team as a whole, because also a lot of their games aren't really broadcasted. So it's kind of tough to also find their games. If sometimes I might miss the repeat game. So it's a bit of a tricky one to assess overall. But They played really good football. They play really good football. They entertain you, and they score. They score, but they also concede, like many other teams in the PSL. So it really becomes a thing of where could they end off? Their top scorer in the league is joint top of the scoring charts. Kaizer Chiefs with 7 goals and 1 assist so far in the league. So they are in a really good position. The same person is tied with Peter Shalulile in the league. I think it's Shalulile. Yes, I think Shalulile is tied with him. No, it's Ribeiro. Ribeiro is tied with him. So, and if you were to guess which one would end of the season with more goals, you'd pick the Sundowns man over the Cape Town City man. But we'll see. I can't really put my pulse on the team because I don't really understand them well enough yet. But I know that they're good enough to beat any team on their day. So I'd probably say they finished the season third. I'll put them at third in terms of my assessment for them this season. And moving on to the team that's currently third on the table, which have been playing really good football, if we're being honest, and took a massive scalp in the past couple of weeks. That is Supersport United. Kevin Hunt's man give me stress. Because one week they can really dazzle you in how they play. The next week they could really disappoint you in how they play. It's like, could we get a certain level of consistency? Over the past couple of games, they failed to be somewhat consistent, but they played really well. You look at their numbers, they played 16, won 9, lost 5, drawn 2 games, conceded 19, but scored 22. So in goal difference, they're behind Cape Town City. But they've scored more than them. So it shows that they have firepower, which is very true. You look at their last 2 games, they beat Supersport 3-1. And then the game before that, they beat Orlando Pirates 3-1. The game before their last game of the season. But then the last game of the season, they lost 3-1. But regardless of that loss, they have the offensive firepower to be threatening and to kill you in different ways. They can kill you on the counter, they can kill you with set pieces. They have the height and the size as well. They have the overall team to win games, and they have individual quality, which is why I put them above. I expect them to finish the season second above Cape Town City, and that's because they have the individual firepower to pull them back into games. I like Hrobla. Also, I like the likes of, I don't want to name Campbell yet because he's really good. I'm not gonna, he's really, really good. But the tendency with young players is the inconsistency aspect of it all. They could play you for a phenomenal game, one game, and then since they're younger, they're smaller, they find the guy who's much more big and has in them a couple of games later, and then they get bullied in a game, and then they have an off night. But he also has the quality to win his team game. He showed in the Pirates game, arguably everyone can say that's his, in quotes, his coming out party, right? It's his arrival on the scene. It's that moment at which he gained that other level, that next level of exposure and media attention of which he hadn't received before. Though the coach, Kevin Hunt, had been raving about him leading up to that point, we hadn't really fully seen what he can do. And in the Pirates game, we saw his technique, his ability to pass and strike the ball, because he had 2 goals and an assist. His first goal, we saw his technique, and in the goal for Hrobla, in the equalizer, in the goal for Hrobla, take the lead. We saw how well he set up his teammates into taking that set piece, that corner. So overall, there's an ability that he possesses. There's a skill he has. There's not only the quality he possesses, but the fearlessness he plays with. And I think that's an element of youth. I'm not afraid of anything because I have nothing to lose. So I'm going to play how I want to play. And I'll challenge anyone I want to challenge. Because in my mind, I believe that I am better than all that stand before me. That's how he sees the game. And that's respectfully the best way to see it if you ever want to win. And then you look at how well the team has played this season. Their biggest win so far is against Royal AM and Orlando Pirates, respectively, beating them 3-1, respectively. And their biggest loss this season is 3-0 to Golden Arrows, which unfortunately will be covered in part 2 extensively. However, given Hunt's coaching experience and his team's winning experience and mentality will get them over the line. Given Hunt said himself, we are not a buying team. What do? We are a selling team. We sell. But regardless of that, he's a man who always knows how to conjure up a plan to get results. And I expect him to do so. And his team, though, are hitting a bit of a rough patch, but they won't get the wins when necessary and put themselves in a good position come the end of the day. And they will be playing continental football next season. And that's why I have them above everybody else. That's simply it. Now I move on to the fourth team. Far more interesting team. But it's actually interesting, before I move on, is that they have multiple players who've scored many goals in the league. You have Krobler, who's joined second in the league with 6 goals. You have Igadoro, 4 goals. You have Terence with 3 goals and 2 assists. And then you have Chandra Campbell with 2 goals and 2 assists as well. So the offensive dynamism they have really justifies my point, right? I think it's not only just important to mention the numbers, but there's 5 players who can impact the game in the final third in a variety of ways, right? Especially when you go to Terence and Chandra Campbell, that they have both goals and assists in them. So they know how to put in the final ball in the back of it, but also find that final pass. So yeah, that and if you look at their first 2 games coming back, I think the first 3 actually, but it's Kukune at home, Stellenbosch away, and Cape Town City away. Stellenbosch at home, and then Cape Town City away. That'll be a good indicator of how the rest of the season will go. And even if they lose against Cape Town City and Stellenbosch, if they win 8 more games from that point on, I guarantee you Stellenbosch, maybe not Stennies, but Cape Town City might drop points and Stellenbosch might drop points. And then they'll find themselves back in this number 2 spot again in the North. So I really have a lot of faith in the coach. I really have a lot of faith in the players. And I look forward to seeing how well they continue doing this second half of the season. Now we move on to the team that's 4th in the log. Team of which I've been loving like a McDonald's meal over the past couple of months. I've enjoyed watching them play. I saw them play in the Cape Town derby, and they beat Cape Town City a 0-0, and that was probably the most entertaining game I'd seen in a very long time. I wish I was in Stellenbosch watching their game, because 1, that Stellenbosch Stadium 1-4 is insane. 2, overall, as a fixture, it's an entertaining game. It's everything you'd want. It's a local rivalry. It's a provincial game, obviously, so it's a local rivalry, and both teams want to win, and both teams know that if I win, I close the gap on you, or if I win, I widen the gap on you. So it was a sort of a 6-pointer, but at the top of the table. And Stellenbosch, being at home, came out with the win, as they had to, obviously. Then they go on the following week to pull off a magical comeback win, 3-2 again. 3-2 against the London Pirates, and they close off the game in 6 minutes. Not 6 minutes. They make the comeback in 8 minutes. They win, and they hold on to the win. First goal goes in, Pirates look shaky. Second goal goes in, Pirates capitulates. Third goal in, the hairs are already down by the second goal. And they showed, ever since that cup win, they've been on a tear. Not necessarily just in terms of results, but in terms of the energy levels that they perform with on a consistent basis has been different. And it's respectable, it's commendable, and it's impressive. So we ought to really raise our heads and tip it off to them, because they've done really well so far. We also look at several like their overall performance this season. Played 15, won 8, drew 2 and lost 5, scoring 19 and conceding 14. They have a much better goal difference than Supersport, but no one greater than Cape Town City. But they still find themselves in a similar spot around them in the table. They're undefeated in 8 in the league. They've won 7 and lost 1. Their last 2 games, obviously, were 3-2 against Pirates and 1-0 against Cape Town City, as I've already said. The biggest win in the season so far is a 3-2 comeback against the Pirates. And it was a 2-0. They were coming back from a 2-0 deficit, which is even more impressive. Scored 3 goals in 8 minutes and ended Pirates' hopes of finishing the halfway point of the season in the top 4. The biggest loss this season comes to Mamelodi Sundowns. Shocker. By 3-1. And then they win the cup on penalties 5-4 against TS Galaxy, having come back from a goal down as well in that game. Equalized 1-1 in the dying minutes of the game. So you see that there's a lot of impressive stuff. There's a lot of good performances. There is really a high level of expectation from this team. And their front 3 is deadly. They have Ikram Ramos, 5 goals in 13 games this season. They have Andre de Jong, 1 goal in the league so far, and that's the goal he scored against the Pirates. They have my personal favorite, Devin Titus, 14 games, 3 goals, 3 assists this season, 6 goals contributions in the league as a whole. This is my team to finish third. If any team could finish second, it would be Stellenbosch. Because the dynamism of their front 3 is deadly. Their ability to break you down is exceptional. And the tenacity and intensity that they've been playing with for the past 8 games is very impressive. It's very respectable, and is the main reason why they've gotten the results they've gotten. I remember watching them play against Richards Bay away. There was 0-0 at half time. By the end of the second half, they had won 3-0. First half was very flat. Richards Bay tried to press them and pressure them, failed to break them down. But once the ball went across the other end, it was over. It was game over. And that made me look at them differently. That made me really I'd already known about them, but it made me look at them in a different eye and say, what else are they capable of? They can just kill you off just like that. What else are they capable of? Granted, it was the team was number 15 in the league, but to break down the team in the second half like they did was impressive. And how they've broken down teams, top teams, impressive. Really respectable, really commendable. And I just look forward to how the second half of the season will go. Expect them to finish third, as I've already said. So, yeah. If I would give the season so far a rating in terms of fruit, I'll say they're a mango. They're my favorite. And I know that goes on my word. After having said Golden Arrows are my favorite team in the league, I have to lean towards Stellies. Because Stellies are doing what the Golden Arrows should have been doing. That's winning games. Let me go on to a team 5th on the log. The Respectables. The Icons. One of the Godfather teams of South African football. Is Mnyama Ngani Pagadia Pagachuchu. Skeleton. The Dengaba. Chamatambo Pela. Telatuba Pagania Itab. Orlando Pirates played 16, won 7, drew 4, lost 5, scored 19, conceded 15, so have a positive goal difference of 4. Lost back-to-back games. Had the lead in both games, their last 2 games of the season. Before then, they'd been in a 4 or 5 game winning streak. With no 6 game undefeated. They'd been 6 game undefeated. Their last loss before that point had come against Cape Town Spurs, which they gave them, I think, their first win of the season. Now you see what the position looks like. Back-to-back defeats, and it's a bit shaky as to, what's going to happen? How's it going to look? It's a bit tough. But they have the quality to really win them games. They just don't have the defense to save them. Because the offense does what it needs to do, but the lapsing in defensive players really cost them a lot. And it's really been brought to the forefront over the past 2 games that they've played. I wouldn't say they're solely responsible for it, but Dion Hoto and Makaring show that there's a bit of a lack of defensive understanding in terms of the full package of being a defender, what it encompasses. They're pretty decent in 1v1 defending. They're very phenomenal at going forward. But then at certain moments, they lapse in concentration. That's how some of the goals are conceded against Stellenbosch, especially the Titus goal, the Dion goal, the third goal. Obviously, Dion Hoto spots the man last minute and tries to throw his body in the way instead of seeing him coming from the first place. Then you go for the second goal. No, I think it's the first goal, which was scored by Stellenbosch. Makaringe ducks the ball without realizing who's behind him. He intentionally moves himself out of the way from the ball, and it wasn't as though the ball was going to hit his hand. He just completely ducked it because he didn't want to deflect it, of which shows a lack of defensive awareness, right? Because if he knew who stood behind him, he would have never done that, because now he gave the player the opportunity to score. And so they did. Reims scored. Then they suffered the consequences for that. But then you look at the offensive style, the offensive fluidity, they have something many teams lack, and that's 2 forwards who can really get goals. Lepasa has 3 goals in the league, 10 in all competitions. Evidence Mahoba has 4 goals in the league in 13 league appearances. And Lepasa has those 3 goals in 12 appearances. And they score. The thing is, they score. Paris will score. And it's just setting up defensively well enough to avoid conceding goals, which will help them in the latter half of the season. Of which you also look at the players they've been linked to, and there hasn't been really a lot of the media talk, or a lot of the transfer talk is them releasing players, right? In the sense that there's a Pirates player, Mabasa on loan to Moroka Swallows, has been in conversation on being bought by Amazulu. But the Amazulu president spoke on that being unlikely to happen. So, and it's also a bit complicated because the player's still out on loan. So how do you sign him? And like, it's a bit iffy, you know. So with that being the case, you see that they aren't being linked with any defenders, and they need defensive pieces, you know. But offensively, Pirates can score against any team, but can they defend against teams? That's a question for many teams in the PSL, but I think for them, if they desire to leap into the top 2 or 3 in the log, they need to have a better defensive structure. Until then, I don't see them making it. And I don't think they'll buy a defender. That's why I don't think that they're going to creep into that top 2 or that top 3. That's why I leave them finishing in 4th. Nah, actually, I see them finishing in 5th. 5th. Pirates are 5th. The way they act is where I see them staying. Funny enough, from this point on, I see Chiefs. I don't want to waste time talking about Kaizer Chiefs. I have notes on Chiefs. I have notes on every other team as well, but I have notes on Chiefs. I'm not going to read the notes. I'm just going to say the first half of their season statistically. 6th on the log, played 16 games, won 7, drew 3, lost 6, scored 16 and conceded 12. So goal difference of +4. They haven't scored more than any other team above them in the league, and they haven't conceded the most as well. But they have conceded the most in comparison to teams. No, they've conceded the second most against third most. They've conceded the third most in comparison to teams above them. But Chiefs have a bit of a. William Mordy's is the team's top scorer this season with 4. But Chiefs has a couple of concerns. Obviously, it's been released in the media. I read the article earlier this morning, and it said that Fante contract is unlikely to be renewed, and he'll be meeting with the management this January to discuss his future with the club. And it was said that the club will contemplate renewing his contract dependent on if they can find suitable alternatives for him. And so far, there have been 2 that have been identified. So it's highly unlikely that he will have his contract renewed. And the source is that the sources are the Citizen. And so the Citizen is a bit of a solid source in a sense, But this is conversation about Trante that's been speculating around his head for a couple of weeks now. I think I read another article saying similar stuff also. I think it might have been from Goal. So it does show that the likelihood of him coming back is very unlikely. It might not happen. Because his contract does end at the end of the season. And another thing that's keeping him from coming, that might hinder him from coming back, is his wages. He's on a hefty paycheck and he's injury prone, which makes it very difficult that I pay a lot of money, but you're not available to play. So it doesn't make sense to give you a 2 or 3 extension, considering that you're also on the other side of 30. So it financially, no more doesn't make sense for us to keep you. And that's the one side of it. Other side of it, Amakosi is looking for a manager. There have been a couple of names thrown into the hat. At some point it was Benny McCarthy. The leading man in the pack was Peter Msimane. But then Peter ended up attracting interest from the Saudi Pro League. And so his name is somewhat being retracted from the conversation, and enters a man who has just won a quadruple in Malawi, Kalisto Pasua, who is the coach of the Nyasa Big Bullets. I don't know if I said it correctly. I hope I did. With that being the issue, now that it hangs over Pirates, there's been conversation of, why don't you make the current manager the permanent manager? He's won a couple of games, hasn't lost yet. No, hasn't lost in the last few games since the derby. Let him keep the job. And the conversation is like, no, we want a high-level manager who'll take the team to the next level. And it seems as though Chiefs are being somewhat ambitious now. I like it. I respect it. That's what they need to do. If they want to win, they have to go out there in the market and be aggressive. But I have one problem with Kaizer Chiefs. I don't like Christian Saile. Christian Saile plays too maturely. He plays like a child. He's very wasteful in front of goal. Sure, he has 3 goals and 1 assist in the league, but how he plays is so not good for someone his age, and who's so highly touted by the media and by the commentators and everything. He's too rash in his approach, and he doesn't time himself properly, and he's too focused on himself and not on the team as a whole. There's several times in so many games I've seen him, he's in good position, he's sort of passing the flipping ball. He forces to take the shot. After he forces to take the shot, he misses. And sometimes when he's meant to take the shot, he rushes it too much, therefore he misses it. Then he has the audacity to celebrate and do the Jude Bellingham celebration. Ralama Sebao, that's not Kane. Please, I say please. And I don't think Christian Saile at the moment is good enough to play for Kaizer Chiefs. I'm not gonna lie. He's like Adama Traore, but in the PSR. It's like, I never thought I'd see another version of Adama Traore in my life. And it's not nice seeing an Adama Traore, because it's almost like a waste. It's almost like wasted potential in a sense. Like, you're doing the wrong thing. That's not what you're supposed to do. And you have so many gifts to make your game easier, but you make it difficult for yourself because something here in your head isn't wired properly. Maybe it's an ego thing, I don't know, but that man is costing us points, man. I don't like that nigga. I don't respect that man respectfully. The last 2 teams, I need to get through this pretty quick because I don't want to make this a very long episode. It's already coming up on 50 minutes. I'll try and do these teams simultaneously. They sit 7th and 8th respectively. Amazulu sitting 7th in the log, 1-5 drew 7, lost 4, scored 14, conceded 12. TS Galaxy on the other end played 15, 1-6 drew 3, lost 6, scored 14, conceded 11. They've both scored the same amount of goals, but Amazulu seems to have conceded more. And the biggest win was 3-0 against Royal AM for Amazulu, and the biggest defeat is 3-0 against Kaizer Chiefs this season. And then you have on the other side Golden Arrows, who have their biggest win against 3-0 against Polokwane. No, TS Galaxy's biggest win is 3-0 against Polokwane City, and their biggest defeat is 3-0 away to Stellenbosch. Seems as though 3-0, scoring by 3 goals, like the biggest margin. I think Sundowns has the biggest win so far this season, the 4-0 victory against Golden Arrows, but that's pretty decent, you know. Last 2 games of the season, Amazulu drew to Cape Town Spurs at home, and then they won against Royal AM at home. On the other side, TS Galaxy won away at Golden Arrows 2-0 and won against Supersport United at home 2-0. Nurkovic scoring both their games. The second goal is even funny enough. So both teams have a very impressive record this season. They've done pretty well for themselves. Where do I see them finishing? I think it's a bit tricky. Because in all honesty, if I look at Amazulu, I see them potentially finishing anywhere between 5th and 9th. I think they are what Golden Arrows have tried to be for the past couple of months now. They have the forward line to get them a pretty decent number of goals, right? And the creative players to do so, your Bule Extins, Elabo Tsapang Moremi, amongst the other players who contribute towards that winning, towards the team winning overall. And then on the other side, you have Nurkovic, who has 4 goals this season, Spio Mahlangu, who has 3 goals this season, who do contribute offensively to the team winning at the end of the day. So both teams have good enough squads to finish in a pretty decent position at the end of the league, at the end of the season. But they could potentially finish in the lower half as well if the forward line stops firing. And it's more likely to happen for TS Galaxy rather than Amazulu. Why? Because Amazulu have Chidi Gwem. Chidi Gwem joined second in the league, top scorer with 6 goals. And they have Junior Dion off the bench as well, who has 3 goals in 9 games this season. And I see Amazulu finishing higher, actually. I could see them finishing 6th. I could see them finishing over Kaizer Chiefs. But I can't see them finishing over Orlando Pirates. That's only because their offensive front line is structured well enough to get them the points and to get them the results and wins. Unlike Kaizer Chiefs, whose forward line isn't, right? Kaizer Chiefs are more reliant on spontaneity rather than actually putting the ball in the back of the net on a consistent basis. Unlike Amazulu. And TS Galaxy could, currently been in a good run of form, but they've struggled a little bit from time to time, They have a bit of an inconsistent track record. But anything could happen for the second half of the season, because I think the biggest thing is AFCON really impact how the rest of the season plays itself out. And so it's really interesting how it'll all come to pass and how it'll all end. But definitely, the second half of the season is going to be very interesting. It's something to definitely look forward to, something to definitely be hyped up about. And hopefully there's a lot more in store for all of us PSL fans or DSTV Premiership fans. But we can say this. Chat of Athletes will be there every week, baby. That's me. Yeah, but that's it for the first half of the season. Okay, I have to give a position then. I see Amazulu finishing 6th above Kaizer Chiefs. And I see TS Galaxy finishing 10th. Just failing to get a couple of results at the start of the second half of the season, but picking up pretty late on to climb back up the table a little bit to avoid relegation. Because they definitely have the individual firepower to survive. Nurkovic and hopefully Bernard Parker, when he comes back, they will contribute to the goals a lot more. And they also have, there's a bit more, it's more of a personal thing, but Lutolo Mojala has to give us a bit more offensively, in the league. And I think he can. And I was Puyo Mahlangu will have the capabilities to do a pretty decent job. So there's hope there. And it's not on no souls. It's really on talented individuals who know how to get the job done. So we'll see how the second half of the season actually plays itself out. We really will. But that's all from Chat of Athletes, episode 7, first half of the season assessment, part 1. And I thank you for watching. And if you made it this far, please comment. Like last time I said comment, nobody commented, but please comment. Okay, what could comment be? Comment. #flu. Yeah, #flu. I got a cold if you haven't noticed. But yeah, comment hashtag flu in the comments. And if you comment hashtag flu, and I know you, if you're a subscriber, I'm gonna send you a little bit of money. I ain't got the money, but I'll send you the money. I'll find the money and I'll send it to you. But thank you for watching, and I hope you take care, and goodbye.